March 13, 1962. The room is warm and quiet inside the Pentagon. A stack of papers sits in the middle of a polished wooden table. The top sheet has a single word stamped in bold black ink: Top Secret. A man in uniform slides the document toward the head of the table. It's for the Secretary of Defense. The lights buzz softly. Pens click. Nobody speaks for a moment. Then the reading begins. The plan on the paper is unlike anything the American public could ever imagine. It's about hijacking planes, blowing up U.S. ships, setting off bombs in American cities, killing people, and then blaming it all on Cuba. The goal? To trick the American public into supporting a war. And this wasn't a movie script. It was real. This wasn't just talk. It was a real plan, written by the U.S. military in 1962, now available in the U.S. National Archives. The name on the cover? Operation Northwoods. At the time, the Cold War wasn't just politics. It was fear, suspicion, and the very real chance of nuclear war. Cuba, just 90 miles from Florida, had become America's biggest headache. The Cuban leader, Fidel Castro, was close friends with the Soviet Union. That friendship gave the Soviets a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. The US wanted Castro gone, but there was a problem. The American public wasn't ready to go to war over Cuba. So Operation Northwoods was designed to change that by manufacturing an excuse. Let's go back to 1959. Fidel Castro sweeps into Havana after a revolution against the Cuban dictator, Fulgencio Batista. Castro is young, charismatic, and loved by many Cubans. At first, Washington isn't sure what to make of him, but within a year, it's clear. Castro is aligning with the Soviets. For the US, this is a nightmare. The Cold War is built on stopping Soviet influence, and now there's a Soviet ally, just a short boat ride from Miami. The CIA begins planning ways to get rid of Castro. There's the Bay of Pigs invasion in April 1961, a disaster that ends with US-trained Cuban exiles captured or killed on the beach. The failure embarrasses President John F. Kennedy and damages America's image, but it also hardens the resolve of the US military and intelligence agencies. They want a second chance. They want it bad. The pressure builds in Washington. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest-ranking officers from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, are convinced Castro needs to be removed. But President Kennedy is cautious. He doesn't want another messy, obvious invasion. That's when the idea of provocation begins to take shape. If you can't convince the public to support a war, you make the public believe they've been attacked. Inside the Pentagon, planners start brainstorming. They want something bold, something shocking, something that would create outrage so strong that Americans would demand action against Cuba. The brainstorming leads to a formal proposal. That proposal becomes Operation Northwoods. The plan is chilling in its detail. It calls for hijacking airliners and blaming Cuba, blowing up a U.S. Navy ship in Guantanamo Bay,
Navy blowing up one of its own ships to test out.
Staging attacks in American cities, faking funerals for victims of staged incidents, planting fake evidence linking Cuba to the violence. One idea even suggests taking a civilian plane, swapping it for a military drone in midair, and then blowing it up, all while making it look like Cuba shot it down. Another plan, create a fake Cuban terror campaign in Miami and Washington, D.C., including bombs and even real casualties. Every step is designed to look authentic. The public wouldn't know the truth. Congress wouldn't know. The only people who would know were in that room at the Pentagon. When the Joint Chiefs of Staff finish reviewing the plan, they approve it unanimously. On March 13, 1962, they present it to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. This is the moment. If McNamara and President Kennedy approve, the U.S. will set in motion one of the most deceptive and dangerous operations in American history.
The attack appears time.
But here's where it changes course. McNamara doesn't like it. President Kennedy doesn't like it either. Kennedy has just lived through the Bay of Pigs disaster. He's seen what happens when secret operations spiral out of control. He knows an American-orchestrated false flag could backfire in ways no one could predict. Kennedy rejects Operation Northwoods. The plan never gets approved. But the fact that it was seriously proposed in writing is enough to send chills down the spine.
Picture this: an Air Force officer, one of the people tasked with drafting the plan, is driving home from the Pentagon. It's late. The roads are quiet. He's thinking about the day's work. He's not a politician. He's a soldier. His job is to follow orders and plan for contingencies. But tonight, he's wondering, what if this plan had been approved? What if one of those fake attacks went wrong? Would he be able to live with it? Or would the truth be buried forever? For decades, the public knew nothing about Operation Northwoods. The documents sat in government archives, locked away under top-secret classification. It wasn't until the mid-1990s, after the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act forced the release of Cold War documents, that Operation Northwoods became public knowledge. Anyone can read it now. It's in the National Security Archive. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And when you read the words, it's impossible not to feel the weight of what almost happened. But the approval process went far enough to prove something important. In 1962, America's top military leaders were ready to stage deadly attacks on US soil and blame another country, just to start a war. That's not rumor, that's not speculation, it's in the documents. Click here for another interesting video.